Daniel, the economy is gone. It's not the same it was when you were campaigning for Atiku Abubakar to be president. A lot has happened. What's your take on the policies, the economic policies of the current administration, which has brought Nigeria to where it is right now?
So, had the governing party or had the president, Bwala TInubu, not removed the subsidy and floated the naira, it will be the same status quo, right? Where the situation will be the way it was. It will still go down and become worse because truth of the matter is that there was a big difference between, and that's not to put excuse. There's a big difference between 2015 when Buhari took on board and what was on ground, and 2023 when TInubu took over from Buhari, even though from the same party, right? At the time TInubu took over, and yet, like I told you, I maintained that opposition against the governing party on their policy issues like floating of the naira and the removal of subsidy until I had a sit down with Mr. President, and he gave me the premise on which he took that decision. And me coming from the intellectual, from the academia, I should rather put it this way, from the academia and from my legal practice, what we do is we submit to superior argument. We are not sentimental in the way we do it. It's just like the way we practice in court. When you are making argument, once an argument of the other person is superior, the court goes on the direction of the superior argument. Unlike the general masses where they believe if you say somebody is a devil, maintain that position that the person is a devil and don't even listen to anything he has to say. So when I sat with Mr. President, he told me, and I have every reason to believe him. I'm telling you that I'm convinced by what he told me about the removal of subsidy, because I opposed it very vehemently. And I said that you cannot remove subsidy until you have provided the palliative first, and then you can remove the subsidy, which is the natural thing. He did not even argue with me along that line. I mean, what I mean by argument, as in disagree. But he said when he took over, when he became the president, there was nothing on ground to begin to govern. And usually, if you want to maintain that subsidy, then you have to have some money on ground to use it and lift the people out of poverty, because people continue to go down. So, and you cannot go and borrow, because get to a point where people will even give you money, because you have to show that you have economic policies that will lift your people out of poverty. So he said the only options he was faced with were two. One is to remove the subsidy, which will have a telling effect on Nigerians, for sure. There's no doubt about it. But at least we'll be saving the money we would have given for subsidy to begin to then affect areas that affect our people, right? To, cause the change. That's one option. Or the second one is to maintain this subsidy thing, and then in few months, people will be in the streets stoning us, because it will be apparent to everybody there is no money on ground, to govern. So he said, when it gets to that point as a leader, and you're faced with tough choices, it is actually your courage that will determine that. So he did what, since 1960 till his time, people were very careful not to take, like the removal of subsidy, the floating of the naira. If you ask an economist on these two areas to give you their opinion, they will tell you that any nation that takes that decision, it will have a telling effect in the immediate, but that in the long term, it is going to affect the country positively. Okay. I have studied Financial Times London. Okay. All of them say that those decisions will have a positive effect in the long term. But we are all suffering the short-term effect of that decision.
Okay, so you've swept the carpet from under my feet, so I can't ask you about the current situation, because you're saying that. So long-term, short-term, how soon will Nigerians see the price of petrol start going down? How soon will Nigerians see the US dollar and naira exchange rate begin to improve on the side of the naira?
So the certainty of when will now be determined by the speed to which the economy grows. For example, with respect to naira is now in competition with other currencies. The strength of currencies are backed up by certain fundamentals. Like, for example, if your country is a manufacturing country, if your country is a country that has the highest, number of entrepreneurs, if your country is a country that has the highest number of, working force, right? If your country is a country that has regulations that are positive, if your country is a country that attract foreign investors. That means your country is a country that the private sector are driving and leading the economic development, economic growth of that country. Your currency will bounce back. So the speed with which it bounces back is dependent on these variables.
All right.
And if you look at Nigeria,
are you saying that it may or may not happen depending on some factors?
So no, it will happen, albeit slowly, unless and until, for example, Anthony Blinken, the secretary of the U.S. Secretary of State came. Yeah. I listened to his speech. So what he was telling the president is that Americans are more than willing to come and invest in Nigeria. The only thing that we're trying to figure out with them is they are concerned about the repatriation of capital. You see, that's the point. The point is that the economy has become so down that you cannot easily just give up those capitals that are coming, which is a problem because no investor will want to come and invest if you can't have return on investment.
So that short term you're saying may now become long term if certain factors don't favor the Nigerian economy.
No. The only thing that is in the short term now, the only thing that is realistic in the short term is what in the economic policy they say fund poverty. You get your people out of poverty by funding poverty. It means that you continue to give money to the indigent members of the state. So, for example, these social interventions of government, if you give more money to the poor, you have increased their purchasing power. They are able to go to the market to buy items. Right. They're able to pay for the services. Right. And in going to the market and paying for the services creates jobs. And that's how continuously people will come out. So intervention is the only thing that is workable in the immediate. But anything else will take time.
Those interventions are on hold because of the corruption scandals bedeviling the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and Poverty Alleviation. But Daniel, please...
No. It's not... Okay, the intervention needs to be defined. It is not... The interventions are not limited to what is happening in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. Right? Mm-hmm. For example, the government policy on loan for the student is also government intervening. In America, they did that before. It wasn't working because people couldn't even get to pay.
Okay.
So a student will get up to $200,000 for his studies. By the time he comes, he need to work 10 years to pay. So they are now doing student debt forgiveness.
Hold the thought, Daniel. But I'm so sorry. We just to give our listeners a chance to talk this morning. Hello, good morning.
Good morning, sir.
Welcome. Very quickly, please. Can you be very brief?
Good morning to your guest as well. My name is Mrs. Oboli.
Welcome.
In your intro this morning, I'm greeting your guest. In your intro this morning, you said he was the former spokesperson of Atiku Abubakar. So I just want to ask you a question. From what you're saying this morning, you're sounding more like a praise-singing politician. Are you really familiar with what Nigerians are going through presently? You said I agree, like you said, between the APC and the PDP, there's no difference. It's obvious. And if Nigerians were to have an alternative, I believe they will not even vote for any of these parties.
Okay, thank you.
You are speaking this way. I don't think you are passing through the pains that Nigerians are passing through.
Thank you.
You are praising these politicians while Nigerians are dying out there, insecurity,
thank
hunger, strife, and everything. All right,
Mr. Boli, thank you.
Take this morning.
Thank you. I'll allow, Daniel, please, I'll allow you to respond to that. I just want to take a few of them before I come back to you. 99.3, good morning.
Hello, good morning, Sherry.
Kofi Bartels here. Kofi Bartels.
Good morning.
Yeah, very quickly, please.
I need to do from Surulere.
Okay, good.
Please, I want to ask Bwala, his intention to support the President TInubu, is it in interest of Nigeria or his personal interest? Because President TInubu has emerged as APC candidate when he went to work for Atiku. Even though that APC governors say that the power should go to South. But Daniel Bwala thwarted it and went for Atiku. I want to ask him, is it in his own interest or national interest?
Okay, but
him working for Atiku when the North is complete 8 years.
All right. Thank you. You want to know if it's a Nigerian interest or a national interest? Okay, we don't have time. Daniel, you want to respond to two of them? Feel free in whichever order.
Okay. So you see, if you look at the two questions with respect to the people who asked the question, is the reflection of our society. For example, in our conversation, we talked about policies of government. We talked about economic policy. You have asked question about the Naira. You have asked question about when are we going to be out. We talked about intervention and everything. All of these things, they matter to them. That's a reflection of how our society thinks. Ordinarily, the conversation should be around there. So these people, like the lady that talked, she should have said something in the line of, so the people are suffering. So how will that social and social policy impact? So should the people die? These are issues around governance. But no, that's not her concern. Her concern is me. I am one out of over 200 million Nigerians. Whether I move here or I move there, whether I say this or I say that, does it impact on the people? This is a reflection of how our society thinks. Now, she said that I'm doing press singing. Well, it is her opinion.
All right.
But what I know I'm committed to doing is that I am going to help this administration. And it's not everything I give to the president as my advice that I will come out to the media and start talking about. That's the difference. When you don't have the access, you talk from outside. When you have the access, it will amount to grandstanding to come and be talking, about those things. Then the young man said, you supported Atiku and now you're supporting TInubu. Is it in your own interest or in the national interest? It is both.